Welcome all, this is Raymond for Stream Gamers. We are back at it again. Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 versus 2024 Alpha Edition. Long Harbour, British Columbia, Canada. Just a couple of housekeeping notes here. Let's just be aware, or I want to make you aware that on 2024 Alpha Edition, I had the preset set for live weather, October 16th-ish, I think it was, hence the fall colors and everything else, which is quite accurate. In Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, I did the recording in clear skies, and so you're going to see on the 2024 side some haziness and so forth, which is just the way it is. It's more realistic, so this isn't so much about that. It's more about a direct comparison from one video to the next, or one sim to the next, I should say. And you can see, like, generally you're going to see throughout the video, you're going to see the autumn colors and that kind of stuff, whereas in 2020 Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 it's just green. Stuff is just green. Accurate or not, don't know. My wife and I have had an opportunity to come out to the West Coast. We live in Central Canada. We've had an opportunity to come out to the West Coast a number of times, not necessarily by air, so some of this stuff we haven't seen, but a good deal of the scenery we've seen in person. Not at autumn. This was, in summer or toward the end of summer. But anyways, so here we are, just flying along, seeing once again, as I say, the autumn colors in 2024, whereas in Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, we're just seeing a lot of green. So probably fairly accurate if you were in midsummer, but not so much now. And of course, in Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, you can change your sliders around, but it doesn't seem to produce autumn colors and stuff like that, or at least I haven't been able to figure out how to do it. I know there are mods and so forth that will allow you to do that. In both cases, I've tried to keep the data being natively, or that's to say unmodified. I don't have any mods or any add-ons and that kind of stuff that will enhance the scenery one side or the other. This is the way the sim has come to us. Now, I will say in 2020 we've had a number of scenery updates and that kind of stuff, and so the world as a whole has relatively decent scenery across the board. Whereas in 2024, those updates and modifications that I know of are not there. Also, keep in mind that in 2024, we do not have the scenery, the higher quality scenery across the board at all different places around the world. The 2024 Alpha Edition was, from what I understand, more of a stress test than it was anything else. And because it was a stress test, they didn't put a bunch of stuff in there. I believe that's the way it was. So you're going to see ground textures and that kind of stuff, which will look similar to what 2020 is. I will caution those that are looking at this and saying, well, 2020 looks way better because. Just be aware that in 2024, we're not getting the entirety of it. This is just a first look, an early look. For those nerd geeks like me whose specs are important and that kind of stuff, we'll get that out of the way. I have a Ryzen 7 5800X3D processor. I have a RTX 4080 graphics card, 32 gigs of DDR4 memory. And I have M.2, a Samsung M.2 drive that has more than reasonable write speeds. I don't know what they are, but more than reasonable write speeds. Write and read speeds, that is. I'll put a bunch of that stuff in the comment section and that kind of stuff so that you can look that all up. So on the itinerary for today's flight, we're going to be flying. We've flown past Parker Island, which I failed to mention before, but that is the island in which we turned over and went across a bit of a ridge and that kind of stuff. That's Parker Island. We are heading toward Delta Port. Off in the distance there, you can kind of start to see the island. In the Alpha edition, you can see the white little speck there just to the right of the compass. That's Delta, or Delta Port, I should say. So we're going to be coming across that shortly. For those that are new to my videos, I have a whole series of 2024 versus 2020 Microsoft 2020 videos out there, so I'll try to remember to add some links in the description and or summaries throughout this video, so that if you probably at the end where you'll be able to say, hey, let's go look at this one or let's go look at that one, kind of a thing. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm pretty psyched and pumped to be able to fly in 2024 in all of its glory. When we had the Alpha edition, we didn't have access to a number of things. We didn't have access to the store. We didn't have access to the multiplayer function. Although in the world there is real life commercial flights flying around in the world, and we can see them, but we can't see any of the actual other people flying around in the world. I read an article that at some point, not necessarily at the time that I was recording, but at some point the stress test had some 15,000 users logged in. I don't know if that's across multiple servers, if that's I don't know how all of that works, but I had heard that there was at some point there was some 15,000 alpha testers online. That may or may not be when I'm doing this recording. Can't tell you because I don't know. But here we are, getting much closer to Delta Port. And you're going to see some in Microsoft Flight Sim 2024. They've talked about at great lengths. They've talked about things like oil platforms, ships, seasons, active grass. Grass that will be activated as you fly over top of it, or have the airflow going across it, and the grass will move around and that kind of stuff. So the ships are here in the Alpha edition, but as we fly out throughout the sim or throughout this flight, you're going to notice there's at times it seems like an excessive amount of ships, and B, the ships aren't not always parked the way they should be. I assume that will be addressed. I don't know that for a fact, but I assume it will be addressed. I certainly hope that it will be. Because yeah, it's a little weird in terms of what we're seeing. Another thing, as we get started in the video, I'm going to caution everybody to understand what has been the history of Microsoft and Microsoft Flight Simulation. We may have forgotten how that all works so much so with FSX, because it had been such a long-running title. But we all know that when Microsoft does a release like this, it is not always perfect outside of the box, just running smooth and doing everything. So for those that are hypersensitive toward that and can forego needing to have the sim immediately when it comes out, I maybe recommend not getting it right away. Let the the bugs work themselves through. Give it a month or 2 or 3 or whatever it is. Remember when 2020 came out, I think that probably inside of a year or so, we were dealing with a bunch of weird, erroneous things that some people who are particular about this, that may bother them. Myself personally, I've signed up for the beta edition. I did a video on why I did that and so forth. That'll be a part of that series that I'll hopefully remember to link at the end of this. But I can't wait, and I understand that Microsoft is going to use us as test beds and guinea pigs for their software to some degree. They're not the only ones that do it, but yeah, I can't wait. So the minute it's out, I'm in. I'm gonna. There's our ship that that has run adrift into the shore apparently. That's kind of one of the things that I talked about. You know, some of the enhancements that are supposed to be in the sim are there, and some are there, but maybe not very well done. You're going to see throughout the flight, you're going to see parts of it that aren't going to really make a lot of sense. They're not going to. They're going to look weird. In 2024, that is. Just be aware that what we're seeing here may not be an exact copy of what we're actually going to see once the full release drops and we set up. Another thing, I've said before, but I'm going to say it again. When I downloaded the Alpha Edition, it was a 9 gig file. Those that have downloaded 2020 understand that it's 130 plus, and then you got to get all of those scenery updates and that kind of stuff. The way I understand it to work, we're not going to need to do all of that. We're going to download some 9, 10, 12, 15 gigs, something that's in that area. And mostly everything is going to be streamed to us. This is what I understand. I could be wrong, so just take everything that I'm saying here with a grain of salt. Don't take it as if it's the gospel truth. And if I'm wrong and somebody knows something that I've stated that's not correct, in the comment section, put it in there. I'm happy to be corrected on any of this stuff. But just, be mindful that it's just the scenery is not going to be 100% exactly accurate as to what we will see later on in the sim. That's not to mention all of the add-ons and the modifications, scenery mods. I myself have, I don't know, I think I have probably 10 or 15 airports that I've released on flightsim.to. So I'm going to be having to update those just the same. Anyways, here we are, just buzzing along. We are on our way down the South Arm Fraser River. That's what's beneath us right now. For those that are going to try to do this flight, I'll also try to link a file, a little nav map file somewhere, somehow. I'm not sure exactly how I'll do it, but I'll put it in there somewhere, and that you might download it and actually see the flight path that I actually took in Microsoft Flight Sim 2020, which closely represents the Alpha Edition. We're going to come up here to there's a bit of a fork here, and as we fly up the South Arm Fraser River. This is a river that, from what I understand, goes well inland. I think that's how it works. My geography in this part of the world, like most parts of the world, is not anywhere near what it could be or should be. It's improved over the years, but it could easily be considerably better. So off in the distance, we got our mountain range there off in the distance, our little bumps way out there. Part of I think it's a part of the Rocky Mountain Range, but I'm not sure if that is actually still the Rocky Mountain Range. And that's not that those are more bumps than they are the actual Rockies, I think. I think in both cases, the scenery, what I'm seeing, and what you probably have seen already, is the murkyish gray water there. I don't know that that's accurate. This is a river that spills off into the Pacific Ocean. It feels like it wouldn't be murky like that, but maybe it is. To me, it feels like the water in 2020 is maybe a little more accurate. Once again, somebody has first-hand knowledge of that, please link it, put it in the description. Let me and everybody else know, is that river that murky in 2024, or is it more like a clearish water like it is in 2020? We'll watch a little bit of scenery, and throughout I'll plan to comment in places where I feel I've left myself into some notes to be able to comment in certain sections and places. For example, here you notice that in 2020 there's some fuel tanks there. In 2024 there is no fuel tanks. I presume those fuel tanks are semi-accurate, whereas in 2024 I could see where they're supposed to be, and maybe they will be populated at some point. Again, I can see a hangar in 2020 Alpha there, but I don't see the hangar in 2020. So you can see some of the differences. I believe we are turning and heading toward Vancouver International Airport, off in the distance there. So one of the things that I've discovered, and you can watch for yourself as we get closer to the airport, Vancouver is one of those airports that in 2024 they haven't done a good job of that. But again, I speculate that that's just one of those parts of the scenery and parts of the world they haven't actually put in completely. Whereas in 2020, it feels and looks, in my mind, looks considerably better. I might take a minute here and go through my speech like everybody else always does. A like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, all that wonderful stuff goes a long way in helping the video reach out to more and more people. So I would appreciate the likes, the comments, the subscriptions. As I've said in other videos, my attempt is to try to grow the channel. And those that have watched some of my earlier videos, years ago, that was never my goal or my attempt, but I am attempting to do just that and grow the channel and so forth. So, all that good stuff would be greatly appreciated. The Vancouver airport just seems very barren and non-lifelike now. I recognize that my altitudes are not the same and we're not seeing it exactly the same scenery, but you can see the little flashy lights going up to the runway in 2020, whereas in 2024 that doesn't exist. Those lights don't exist. I think I'm a little lower in 2020 as well, and so I think you're going to see that different. You can see off in the distance there, rewind the video a little bit, but there's a tower in 2020, and I didn't see that tower in 2024 as well. I didn't spend much time flying directly over the airport and too much of that stuff, because in 2024 I didn't do it either. And in hindsight, I wished I had actually, and I don't know why I didn't. Once again, we see the river in front of us, and the river is glass smooth and shiny and clear, as opposed to, again, that more of that hazy brownish water. I don't know. Maybe that Fraser River is kind of a muddy water kind of thing. Nice shot of the looking back at the airport. We'll see it in 2020. Yeah. So now we're going to fly inland, or we're flying, whatever our heading is, I don't remember now. But we're flying directly toward downtown Vancouver. Those that don't know this about Vancouver, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but Vancouver isn't really a huge city. It's all of the other suburbs, sprawling places that make it big, but Vancouver as a city itself isn't really that terribly big. But then, of course, when you add, Richmond and Burnaby and all of the other suburbs or sub-cities or whatever you want to call them, it makes it a very large area. Off in the distance, we're seeing some of the high-rise buildings of Vancouver. I think that although, and you're going to see this throughout the video, but although there's a lot of high-rise buildings, and I don't know that the texture quality is a whole lot different than it is in 2020 as it is in 2024, But what you are going to see is building placements, and you're going to see building types are going to be different. Now, which one is accurate? I don't know. Is 2020 accurate, or is 2024 more accurate? Once again, those that might know this scenery from this aspect or from this perspective, let's comment. Let's get a discussion going in the comment section, and let us know what your thoughts and your opinions. You guys have been amazing in terms of scenery and your opinions about them in the previous videos, and so comment away. You see this huge cruise ship there in 2024. I doubt that ship should be there. But is that a ship? I think that is. If it was, it probably shouldn't be there. And you can see some of the texturing is not great. And I purposely stayed up high like this because I could see the scenery. The texturing wasn't great. I didn't know at the time I did this that this was going to be a thing, that Microsoft wasn't going to give us, full photogrammetry scenery around the world like they have in 2020. But even in 2020, the scenery doesn't look, wow, spectacular either. Is it my graphics settings? Well, my graphics settings are set on ultra, and so I don't know. Maybe there's some setting in there that I've missed. We see the cruise ships up in the Harbour in 2020 Alpha Edition. We see what I can only assume is an LNG transport hauler ship parked there, is where in 2020 we don't see it. So that kind of illustrates some of the ships that we're going to see in 2024 that we don't see in 2020. I realize in 2020 there is an add-on pack that you can add ships. I think it's by far more comprehensive in 2024 than that add-on pack is in 2020. And again, I've been wrong before. Likely going to be wrong a couple more times before the end of time for me. So if I'm wrong, let me know. And by the way, let me know if anybody knows, are these cruise ships accurate in this waterway? Or B, are the number of ships that we're seeing accurate, and maybe it's just the modeling is wrong? Put it down in the comment section. Anybody, again, let's get a conversation going, a discussion going. Lionsgate Bridge, we are about to go underneath. This is called the Lionsgate Bridge, and so I believe that's what it's called. But we're going over top of it, underneath of it, and then we're going to make a very hard bank to the right. We'll see it again in 2020. I think the bridge is fairly accurately modeled. I've been across that bridge, and I think it's fairly accurately modeled. Parts of it maybe not, the lower section. Down by that train yard, there's a campground down there. And my wife and I, when we came to Vancouver the first time, we stayed in an RV park down there somewhere, right close to that train yard, because I heard the trains going nonstop. I think it was just left of that bridge. Just left of that bridge, I think, is down where we stayed. Again, seeing all those ships out there, out in the waterway, it feels to me like it's overdone in the amount of ships, but is it just the models are wrong, like to me it feels like there could be tankers in there, and there could be cargo ships in there and car haulers in there. I know the Vancouver port has a huge receiving area for cars coming across from the pond. So maybe it's, like I say, maybe it's the number of ships are semi-accurate. It's just the models should be changed for various different types of watercraft. So in general, I see kind of the scenery as kind of being decent. across the board. I just see it more as it being somewhat different from 2024 to 2020. I see the sceneries being fairly good. You know, we are now flying up what is the cross arm, sorry, the north arm of the Fraser River. And this is the inner harbor that we're at right now. We're flying kind of between Vancouver City and Burnaby. Burnaby being just a little further up, and Vancouver City is a little to the rear right of us. Not all of the bridges are, I think, like for example, we're seeing right now, we're approaching a bridge right now, and in 2020, that bridge is well placed, it looks good, whereas where that line there in the water on 2024 is, that should be that same bridge. So it should be a rail crossing. I don't think it's a commuter. It must be a vehicle commuter as well coming across there. But it just isn't, like you see, it's just a roadway going across instead of what you're seeing now is an actual bridge. Yet with the roadway underneath it, it looks like in 2020. Anyways, it's one thing that was missed in 2024. Will it be corrected once the full release comes out? I guess time will tell. We're now turning over, and we're kind of heading more into the Burnaby area. Let me just look here. Yeah, we're heading toward the Burnaby, more into Burnaby, and that kind of stuff. I'm going to put in the description. I'm not sure why I insisted looking at my co-pilot all the time, but I did. And you're going to see the co-pilot a few more times, I'm sure. I think it is, I wanted to look on that direction, but I had the co-pilot there and I couldn't see the scenery off to that side. But I'll put a link in the description of the various different points along the way that we've flown through. You know, for example, Parker Island, Delta Port, Vancouver Airport, South Arm Fraser River, Morey Channel, we crossed across that. We've looped back over to the airport again, and the north arm of the Fraser River. We're going to fly over. We flew over some of the suburbs, Oakridge, South Camble, and Fairview. We flew over Falls Creek, Vancouver Downtown, Inner Vancouver Harbour, which we just came through, underneath the Lionsgate Bridge, the Inner Vancouver Harbour. We were flying in between Vancouver and Burnaby, and now we are kind of more toward Burnaby and MetroDown. Yeah, and that gets us up where we are. My intentions were to kind of read those points as we got through them, but I didn't. And I'll post that in the description, and you can kind of follow along in Little Nav app should you choose to do that. Look at the skylines. They're different, right? But is one right versus the other right? One of the things that I noticed here is the texturing on these buildings in 2024 is quite good. I mean, the buildings are quite good, whereas in 2020, the textures are horrible. We're going to get a good close look at this building and the textures. Not bad, right? Not all blotchy and goofy looking, whereas in 2020, blotchy, goofy looking. So if that's any indicator as to what we can start expecting some of the scenery to look like in 2024 as opposed to 2020, I sure hope it is an indicator. But once again, I've been wrong before, and I'm likely to be wrong again. I believe we are on our way through Westminster. Just up ahead here is Westminster, I think, across that water there directly in front of us. And then we're going to turn along that river and head for our final destination, which is, our final destination is Pitt Meadows Airport. We took off from Long Harbour, CLH3, Charlie Lima Hotel 3. We're landing at Pitt Meadows, CYPK, Charlie Yankee Papa Kilo. So again, look at the building textures in 2024. Pretty good. So in 2020, some of the textures are better, some of the scenery is better, and then some of the scenery and textures are better in 2024. Time will tell when the full release comes out, you know, how much better or not it is. This is a good point to kind of talk about. You can see we're kind of a little off sync in terms of flying together. I have, and I'm sure you've noticed throughout the video, I have made a number of cuts and splices and joins and stuff like that. I've tried to keep that down to a minimum. Here's a couple of nice bridges. These are mostly rail crossing bridges, I think, although there is one down there that looks like it's auto. These, I didn't get close enough to them, but I noticed there's only one bridge in 2024, whereas in 2020 there was, I think, 2 or 3 different crossings, whether it be rail or auto. And there you can see there's more stuff there. So 2020 seemed better in that area. We are coming across another rail yard just in 2024. Just ahead of us is the rail yard. I think that's Westminster rail yard. Could be wrong. I thought I had made a comment about that, but I see in my notes I hadn't. So maybe it isn't Westminster rail, but it is along the Fraser River, of course. So there's kind of a down view of that area in 2020, and there's the rail yard just directly ahead of us in 2020. There's another bridge there off in the distance, it looks like. I didn't get that bridge, but I can see it in 2020 there's a bridge, and in 2024 it appears that there's a bridge there, or is it just, no, that's just one of those roadways that actually hasn't. Well, maybe it has. My altitude is considerably higher in 2024 than it is in 2020. That island that we're looking at in 2024, that's Douglas Island, for those that are keeping track and score. And there is a marker off there, off in the distance, shortly across the little channel between the mainland and Douglas Island. And that is Pitt Meadows Airport. That is our final destination. That's where we plan to land. Like I said, I've had to do some cutting and splicing to try to get. I'm a little too far away in 2024 as opposed to 2020, and so I've done some cutting, splicing, rejoining, blah blah blah, just to get the landings relatively close together. And to keep the scenery close. I also attempted to try to keep the altitude somewhat close, but at the same time I was watching what was going on in 2024 and trying to match in 2020, and so sometimes my altitude and my track is a little off. You can see in 2020 I'm pulling myself back in line with the runway now. And once again, it's very clear to us that the autumn colors are in full swing in 2024 in the Alpha Edition, whereas in 2020, I just recorded this Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 sometime early November. I'll be releasing the video probably 8th, 9th of November. Something like that, and so you could see that, you know, in 2020 we should be seeing a bunch of autumn leaves and so forth like we are in 2024. And to me, that's one of the huge differences so far. that we've seen in the Alpha Edition, and again, that'll change. We're going to have a bit of a fast forward here shortly in the 2020 scene here to get caught up. I personally think the 2020 Alpha Edition right now is quite spectacular in comparison. I think it looks really, really good here. And here, I think it looks good. It's just the seasonal part of it isn't right. In my mind, it isn't right. Now, again, somebody who is from this part of the world that knows this stuff, you can correct me if I'm wrong. We're getting ready to park up. So we're coming to the end of it. Raymond, for Stream Gamers, I appreciate all of your views and comments. I try to get to all of them. Continue commenting. Be good, be kind, have fun, play some games, enjoy life, all that wonderful stuff. And we'll get to you on the next one. Bye-bye.